Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news coming out of the Michigan football program pertaining to the next running backs coach heading into the 2024 season. And Sherrone Moore is going big fish hunting, going after Ohio State's running backs coach, Tony Alford. And we hopped on when Mike Hart was announced that he was not returning to the program heading into 2024. And we started coming up with some not only names, but criteria in terms of what we wanted to see as the next running backs coach for this Michigan program. We said two things. One, you got to be able to recruit, attract top talent. And the second thing, you got to be able to develop. And Tony Alford by far checks both of those boxes. You're really looking at one of the best running back coaches in the entire country. And it makes it even better for Michigan that you're taking one of the best assets from Ohio State potentially and bringing him to Ann Arbor. The more reading I'm doing on this, the more it sounds like there are some legs to this story. By far a home run hire if it gets done for Sherrone Moore. And I think it largely shows the commitment for Sherrone Moore on the recruiting trail. Sherrone Moore wants to take over this Michigan program, and I think he understands that there's a lot of meat left on the bone in terms of what Michigan can do on the recruiting trail. And a guy like Tony Alford would certainly help that cause. Want to get into Tony Alford, talk about what he could bring to this Michigan program. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. A massive shout out to the Michigan fans. It truly has been a blast talking this program over the last couple of weeks. Many of you guys know I am a massive Michigan fan. There is not a program across the country I love talking about more, but cannot thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And I have a feeling we're going to be talking a lot about this story over the next couple of days. But without further ado, let's get into Tony Alford. And I want to go back to kind of the big storylines that we were talking about when Sherrone Moore took over this Michigan program. And I think it starts with the talent acquisition. Right, when Sherrone Moore was a position coach, when he was the offensive coordinator, he was largely Michigan's best asset on the recruiting trail. You look at how Michigan built a national championship team in 2023. It started through the trenches. It started through Sherrone Moore, not only recruiting, but developing guys on the offensive line. And I think Sherrone Moore, looking at the future of this Michigan program, I think he sees the potential that what Michigan can do on the recruiting trail, right? Back to back Big Ten champions, defending national champions, and it is one of the premier programs in all of college football. And I think Sherrone Moore looks at this program and says, hey, we can do better on the recruiting trail. And the idea of him going out and grabbing one of the best recruiters as a running backs coach in Tony Alford would be absolutely massive. I think that's where I want to start, is what Tony Alford has done on the recruiting trail. You take a look at what Tony Alford has done in terms of top recruits that he's brought into Ohio State. It starts off with five-star running back Travion Henderson was the primary recruiter on him. You scroll down this list and it is littered with top 50, top 100 national talent. And I think the big storyline is not only has Tony Alford shown that he is one of the best recruiters in all of college football, you go back to what we've always talked about. Tony Alford is from the state of Ohio, from Akron. You look at Michigan, where they want to grab their talent from, where their primary recruiting battles are. It's in the state of Ohio. And Tony Alford, having all the connections that he does in that state, obviously has worked at Ohio State, has worked at Notre Dame. He is very well connected in the Midwest, in the state of Ohio. And I think that is a massive asset for Tony Alford on the recruiting trail. But you look at what he's done. He doesn't only recruit the state of Ohio. He goes down to the state of Texas, grabs top talent. And then the second storyline for Tony Alford is what he's done on the developmental side of things as well, right? You kind of draw that balance between finding elite recruiters, but have also shown that they know how to develop the elite talent. And once they get into the program, Tony Alford has been with Ohio State since 2015. I'm just going to start listing some running backs that Tony Alford has worked with during his tenure. And it starts with his first season at Ohio State as the running backs coach in 2015, working with one of the best running backs that we've seen in college football over the last couple of decades in Ezekiel Elliott. And then you fast forward, you work with guys like Mike Weber, J.K. Dobbins, Travion Henderson, who's probably going to be a top 50 pick in the NFL draft come 2025. This is a guy that not only checks the box on the recruiting trail, but also checks the box as a developer as well. and you look at this Michigan program, it is predicated on running the football. You want to have talented running backs. You look at how much Blake Cormer, how much Hassan Haskins meant to that Michigan program. You got to have running backs who know how to run the football. Tony Alford not only going to bring the top talent to Ann Arbor, but going to be a guy that certainly develops those running backs as well. And I think the cherry on top for a lot of Michigan fans, including myself, is you're taking one of the best recruiting assets from Ohio State in Tony Alford and bringing him to Ann Arbor. You talk about trying to continue to change the tides. Bringing Tony Alford to Ann Arbor, it doesn't get any better than that. And I go back to some of the candidates that we were talking about when Mike Hart was announced that he was not coming back. I didn't include Tony Alford because I didn't really know it was a possibility. This shows Sherrone Moore. He is not playing games in terms of building the staff around him. And we said, Sherrone Moore, if there's one question mark about him as a head coach, it might be the lack of experience actually being a head coach. What he's doing in terms of surrounding himself with elite coaches at the position groups, that's massive. And that's a massive part of being a head coach. You look at all the success that Nick Saban had. A lot of that success came with how well he hired coaches around him. Sherrone Moore doing a phenomenal job surrounding himself with an elite coaching staff that not only is a proven developers on the football field, but guys that can get it done on the recruiting trail. And that's the recipe to winning football games at the college football level. We'll continue to cover this one as it plays out, but Tony Alford, a main target for Michigan as their next running backs coach. In my mind, it doesn't get any better than that. We'll cut it there. Obviously, we'll continue to talk about this one as it plays out. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.